Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us at the Policy and Practice webinar titled Are You Evaluating Universal Benefit and Budgeting Calculators? You're all very welcome. It's great to see so many of you here. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Janet Harkin, and I'm just very quickly going to take us through a couple of housekeeping points before handing over to today's speakers. So while you listen to me, if I could ask you just to raise your digital hand in the panel on the right-hand side to give us an audio check. Let us know that we've got the sound working okay. Great, lovely. Hello, nice to see you. I always feel that's like a wave. I'd like to also say that please do ask questions throughout the webinar in the same panel on the right-hand side. We normally have a poll and a survey, but we're not going to have them today because we do want to finish at the very latest by 11:30. We'll definitely have you on your way by then and possibly before then. In the way of webinars, it's always nice to see the faces of the speakers who are going to talk to you today. So here is Devon Galani on the left-hand side and also my colleague Peter Carter there on the right-hand side. They're today's speakers. And what we're going to be talking about today, very briefly, we're going to give you an introduction to policy and practice. It is a brief introduction. And then Devon is going to take us through the welfare reform roadmap just to 2020 as we know it now. We're going to look a little bit about our approach to and how we use our software engine and your local data sets. And then the main part of the presentation, Peter is going to take us through our software and take you through the main features of the software. Then we're going to have some time on case studies and feedback from frontline advisors and clients, and then a quick overview of some next steps. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Devon, and we're just going to, for the next part of the presentation.
Great. Thanks a lot, Janet, and thanks everyone for joining us on this webinar. I'll give you a quick introduction to policy and practice, and I think a good place to start is to say why I felt it was necessary. I mean, we've got, as I'll talk about in a second, a very complicated benefit system, and I think if we can communicate that to people and organisations in a very clear way, they'll be able to make better decisions. So that's what I did when I set up policy and practice. I tried to build an organisation that makes the welfare system simple for people and organisations to understand so they can make the decisions that are right for them. We do that in three ways. So we call this slide our onion slide, and it talks about the layers of the onion that I think sort of feed into all of the work that we do. You're here primarily, you've expressed an interest in the software, which is where policy and practice began. So I built a piece of software that models the current benefit system and universal credit in its entirety. It now models that now and into the future all the way through to 2020. And that's the heart, that modeling engine, that piece of software is at the heart of what we do. And it's used, as Peter will come on to talk about, to help advisors have more productive conversations with residents, with their customers. But we also use that software in other ways, so I just thought I'd talk about that briefly in case people are interested. So we use that modelling engine to help local authorities map the impacts that policy changes are going to have on each individual household, each individual low-income household within their local authority, using data sets they all hold on housing benefit and council tax support. So that's something we've been doing. We're working with a couple of dozen local authorities currently right now to help them to understand the impacts of welfare reforms up to date and all the way into the future, and taking all of those reforms into account together. And we hope that that has an impact on helping local authorities make better strategic decisions, perhaps around their council tax support schemes, or better operational decisions around who gets what support and when. But we also hope it has an impact nationally. And the reason we think that's important is because there's a whole lot of change happening right now. The feedback we get from local authorities, and what this slide shows you, is that with the range of changes that are about to happen through the benefit system, this slide shows all of those changes in a handy slide. You can see that the green sections show things that are likely to have a positive impact on people's incomes, and the red showing those that are likely to have a negative impact. And what we understand is that all of these changes together paints quite a complex and confusing picture. of welfare reform. And it's really important that we understand at a household level the impact that all of these changes have. So I want you to think about, what if you could see and understand that for each individual household in your area, you could understand to this level of detail, Mrs. Biggins at 73 Acacia Terrace will be affected by all welfare changes by £15.62 per week, particularly universal credit. And you can also know that she has high barriers to work. So you can see whether or not she's better off or worse off as a result of all of these changes. If you knew Mrs. Biggins was going to be better off as a result of universal credit versus being worse off or needing transitional protection, would that change how you might get that support to her? And that's some of the feedback we've had from local authorities and how some of this work is used. So the reason they like to use some of our analytical capability is they find that members want to know the information. They want to make better decisions about the local support schemes they have in place, whether council tax support or discretionary housing payment allocations. Determining which residents they want to contact and prioritise, who should get face-to-face support versus who should get letters or text messages. Understanding how much rental income is at risk, and I'll talk about a particular case study at the end of the session today where we did that. And fundamentally, it's because of, I think, two core drivers. You've got a statutory obligation. The organisations that I can see we have on this call have a statutory obligation, but more importantly, an ethos to protect and support those residents that they work with on in life and toward greater levels of independence. But fundamentally, you're having to make some of those choices and deliver more effective support with less resource. And actually, some of the information we provide, we think, can help you to do that. Okay. And over to Peter now to focus on the core of why you're here today, which is to understand the software. Over to you, Peter.
Thanks, Devon. Thanks, Janet. It's nice to see everybody online this morning, and I just add my welcome to those of both Janet and Devon. Yes, I'm going to go through the calculator, and it's really what we thought we'd do is, which Devon's done very well, is contextualize where we work with, help people as individuals to understand some of the behavioral changes which we're trying to achieve through the welfare system. And just to say, we use this calculator, and we'll look at this after this. There's a few slides where we've got some quotations from both local authority users, housing association users, and welfare to work providers. So depending on where you're from, you'll want to think about using it in a different way. I'm going to show two calculators this morning. The first one is the Better Off in Work calculator, which I've got here in front of me. And that fundamentally is a calculator that says, answers the question, I've been offered a job. Will I be better off if I take the job, or will I lose so much in benefits that actually it's not worth my while taking that work? And of course, what we want to do, and what the ethos of the welfare system is to help people make those decisions and get people back into work. So what we want to do is show people that. The other aspect of it is a lot of people are facing financial hardship. They're having difficulty paying their rents. So we want to help them with their budgeting to say, actually, with the income you've got, are you spending it in the right ways? Can we help you and provide that kind of level of financial support and advice? So the first one is looking at the Better Off in Work calculator. Now, because you don't want to see me typing, certainly most of you wouldn't want to see me typing very quickly these days, I've got a case that is saved and opened here. I'm calling it Peter. You know, Peter 1-2 is just to differentiate the different calculations I've created under the name Peter. Peter is part of a couple. He was born in 1970, his partner was born, whose female was born in 1973, and they have 4 children. The first part of this calculator is just where we start gathering the information, the basic information we need to know, so we can see what kind of levels of benefits this family should be receiving. We can put basis on the fact that these people are living in Salford, this is where I've recently done it. They're in social rent, they've got a 4-bedroom property, and they're paying about £150 a week. For those of you from London, you're going to go, they're paying what? Well, here in London, here in the north, where I'm based, about £150 a week is about right for that. And we can see what their council tax liability is. We gather the information on the age of the children. Now we can clearly gather some more information about whether there's carers or adult disability, and we can open up these what we call accordions or tabs, where we can add information. I'm going to leave most of these just for the sake of showing you the software as blank this morning. If anybody wants me to do other calculations and wants me to do an online specific kind of calculations to look at different circumstances, please let us know, because I'd be very happy to do that and go through these situations. But other things that will affect people's income and their benefits will be, are there any non-dependents in their house? Is anybody above pensionable age? Is anybody a carer in the property? And all that kind of stuff. And we might want to look at income from and sources of income and money from other places. We can quickly create these, and we can have got a whole range of different areas where people can have their income. But again, I'm going to leave that blank. What I want to do is straight away and very instantly get to what my out-of-work entitlements might be based on my circumstances that I've put in at the front end here. So I just click See Out-of-Work Entitlements, and always when you do this, you prepared it earlier and everything hangs for a little minute. But here we've got, I'm showing straight away here, we've got a number of little warnings. There might be benefit cap for this family. We might be eligible for universal credit, transitional protection. We're not eligible for universal credit based on my family where I am, but I might get transitional support there. So I've got a number of warnings which come up for the advisor to tell me various bits of information. And we've got other tabs based on information around LHA caps and so on that all come into it. The first box I like to highlight is the differences between the current benefit system and universal credit. These are some of the changes that we know are impacting the power of universal credit, which is the work allowance. But we can see what income people would get, and we can drill down into this. So we can start looking at things like housing benefit is £432.92p. And if I just click on this, it drills into it. It says actually the maximum housing benefit is £651, but I'm in under occupancy, or you might want to refer to that as the bedroom tax. Size criteria is losing them 14%, therefore they should be on 90. They lose £91 there. And there's a further benefit cap reduction of £127.62 based on the current benefit cap that's in place at the moment. So we can start seeing this information. What we like is being able to compare that very clearly and very quickly to universal credit. And I could just show one system or the other depending upon which system this particular household are into. But as I said, the point of this calculator is about outcomes. What we don't want to just do is think about what people are getting and are they getting the right information. This is about frontline advisors being able to give the right support to the right time to the right people. And of course, some of the way in which those people are coming to us is because of the analysis that Devon was talking about. But I've created a potential job here for Peter. He's been a carpenter in the past, and he's seen a job advertised at £8.25 an hour for 25 hours a week. His partner has seen a potential job where, like my wife, works in a preschool playgroup, £7.20 an hour, the basic rate for two morning sessions a week, and she's wondering, is it worth my while going into work? We want to make it realistic so we can stop paying expenses of going to work. Actually, during school holidays, there may be a requirement of and it's all in the news today about the cost of childcare in the school holidays. But she thinks it's only going to be 6 hours a week during school holidays at £3.94. And the total cost for both of them travelling to work is about £10 a week. And I can change that if I wanted to different amounts over different periods of time. If there are tax credits from previous years, I can put that in here. And now I want to see my out-of-work entitlement. Would I be better off in work or not? So very quickly I'm able to see actually this particular household would be better off in work under the current system by £606.14 per month. Very quickly, a very powerful demonstration of why this family should consider going into work. And if they are considering going into work, but they haven't seen any particular jobs advertised, then I can just go down the page and I can link this to Universal Jobs Match. So I can say, Peter, are you interested in a job as a carpenter? It picks up my postcode automatically. If I've got any skills, I can put that in there and link straight away through to Universal Jobs Match. And it opens up the jobs that are available for me in the Salford area or within a certain range, which I can change in Universal Jobs Match in terms of what's available. So these are the dates completely live, available on the 18th of the 7th, carpenter there at £17.50 per hour. Even better. Fantastic. Peter, are you interested in applying for that job? How can we help you do that? And of course, one of the things we might want to do is see a more detailed breakdown of those numbers. How did you get to those numbers? Well, we can see that on net earnings, we can see how that is broken down. So we can see where money is being lost through national insurance, childcare, travelling to work, and so on, with the net total coming coming all together in terms of what his total income will be. All very powerful and very useful information. But even more powerful is we know for a lot of these households, and certainly when they've got 4 children, is the benefit cap is changing in the autumn. We know it's going to be staggered, and it's going to be coming in based on current information, based on the fact that we've just had a change of welfare ministers and prime ministers. But if that does happen, then the current income, as we've seen on the current benefit system, is £2,277. We know it's going to go up to another £600 odd based on going into work. But when the benefit cap comes in, Peter, you are going to lose a lot more money. You could be £1,000 a month better off if we start trying to get you into work now, where there are low barriers to work, than we would otherwise. And again, we can break that down. We can do exactly the same thing under universal credit. And we can start seeing things like a take-home income chart, so we can see the effects of actually taking on more hours and how the welfare system is impacting on Peter and his partner and his children. So just this is obviously live. My system is not responding. I've got a great internet connection here. I don't know why they let me do these webinars, frankly, and I think that Devon's probably asking the same question as we speak. But as we do this, we can see the information comes up. It's always nice to do it live. And we can see how the current benefit system works. Every pound I earn up to when working tax credits comes in, I'm going to lose £1 in benefits. And that's where universal credit is very different. I'm not losing any benefits for a number of hours until we start moving forward. And so we can start explaining to people why the different systems are different. I'm going to move on. If you've got any questions about the Better Off in Work calculator, please let me know. I've actually already got open the budgeting calculator. So here we've got the universal benefit calculator. This is the budgeting calculator, and I can bring up my history, and I can load the report. So the point of me showing that bit is to say, actually, we can save cases and we can use them and reuse them. One of the things that Devon is going to talk about later, to steal his thunder, is about one of our clients who said, you know, when people come to see us, we're using free calculators at the moment, but every time people come in, we have to enter that information, that data again. Well, from my background in process modeling, I will say it's unlikely you're going to enter the same information the same way twice, and therefore you might not be comparing apples with apples, but also think about the amount of time you can save if you're entering that information once and able to reuse that information. So in terms of being efficient and helping your business processes, this is absolutely bob on at doing that. First thing I can do is say, why are you here? Well, I'm here for some debt advice. And this is Peter's case. They are a couple. All that same information is in here, and I'm not going to re-enter it. So we know exactly what that situation is. We can start looking at whether there's carers, disabilities, other circumstances, all the information. But what we can also do is pick up earnings from other areas. So we picked up the 25 hours from before, and I'm going to say that's going to be 0 hours for there. Just the point is I want to show you the budgeting calculator based on the fact that they are still out of work. We can do any expenses would be taken into consideration there. And I'll just make sure these are at 0, so we can say, actually, we're not going to take these take costs of going to work, we're not going to do that. The next thing I want to do, because it's budgeting, is start looking at the family's expenditure. So I can see straight away what their income is and their total income is. But I now want to start thinking about going into what we call step 3, which is actually what are your costs of living? And we do the costs of living in 5 different areas. So we can look at things like bills, travel, housekeeping, other costs, debts, and so on. The power of having this available to you so you can save it and reuse it again is, I think it's unlikely that the first time somebody visits, they'll know exactly what they spend. Or at least if I was sitting down with my wife talking about what I spend, it's unlikely I'm going to be completely honest. That's just me. She has no idea how much a pint of Guinness is, but that's just me. Okay, so rent, we know what the rent is, we know what all this kind of stuff is. This is about the bills, and we gather information on water rates, gas, how much you're paying for your electricity, TV licenses, and then when I go around the country doing this demonstration, there's always a bone of contention of, is satellite TV a human right? Should people have it or not? Home phones, internets, mobile phones, and so on. And things like insurance or buildings insurance can all go in here. And we can always add other fields if we need to at any time. Travel. I can start putting things like public transport in. There's a family of 6 here. They're going to use public transport. Although I have given Peter a car, he pays about £25 a week for petrol. His car insurance is about £450 a year. He's got road tax. It's an old car. He doesn't get the cheap stuff. He has an MOT. And of course, once a quarter, they haven't always lived in the Salford area, which is where I put this family. Their family have come from, say, let's say, Bristol. Once a quarter, they go and visit the in-laws or the parents and the grandparents and start to, and that obviously has impacts on their expenditure and costs. We can look at things like housekeeping. And it's always, you know, how much do you spend on the weekly shop? Well, clearly I've got no idea, but I've got £130 a week here. School expenses, health and beauty, clothing, the family needs clothing, and other costs, things like going out, savings, pocket money for the kids, sports clubs, birthdays, the annual celebration, Christmas or Eid, whatever you want to call it. Both Peter and his partner are smokers, but it's less than a packet a day, so I've just put down £6 a day for smoking. He likes a bottle of whiskey a week in the house, and his wife, his partner, goes and meets her friends every week, and they go to Cafe Nero and have a cup of coffee or whatever they do. So that's £3.50 a week for that. They do have some debts which they're servicing. This might be rent arrears, it might be council tax arrears, but I just said they've actually borrowed £1,000 from family, which they're repaying at the strange figure there, £38 a week. I can make that more realistic and say £50, sorry, a month. Change that again if I wanted to. And also they've got a credit card debt, which I've got here. Credit card debt somewhere I've got there. Credit card debts, there we go, £750 on credit card. They're paying that back at the minimum payment of £40 a month, which they're doing at the moment. Again, we might create an action plan for future use. We need to get more information on our debts, which we can just say we're going to do that by the end of the month. Let's put that in there. And then let's go to step 4. Now, hopefully, let's all play this game where you are in your offices. Is this household in financial surplus or financial shortfall? Are they better off? Are they okay? Or are they struggling? I could have a little poll here, but I'm not going to do that. But I'm just wondering what you're thinking, because a lot of you are experts in this field. They're actually in cash shortfall by £186.07 per month. That's how much they're overspending. Now, if you're a housing association, guess what? It's unlikely they're going to pay their rent next week. If you're a local authority, guess what? You might be a little bit worried about them going into council tax arrears. If you're anybody else, you're going to be saying, actually, this family could run into and end up being homeless unless we can start putting preemptive support in to help them overcome their situation. What kind of preemptive support could we think about doing? Well, do you think they could take up more work or move into work? Do you think maybe they could save money on bills, save money on other items? Or do you think they could move property? They are in under occupancy at the moment. Now, these can be checked on or off. If this is a disabled couple, severely disabled, it's unlikely that you're going to talk about moving into work or taking up more work. So we could just uncheck that box. But for the purposes of today and showing you what the software does, I'm going to leave them all checked so we can see what happens. So all of a sudden we can start saying, what about your earnings? Well, Peter, do you think, and here I've just got some saved numbers from earlier on, £7.75 an hour for 24 hours a week. Some earnings for his partner, £7.20, basic rate for 10 hours a week. Expenses, I can have some expenses in here, and are we going to take these into consideration? Yes, we are. So straight away I can start seeing, actually, would you be better off if you took those kind of work? And I can see a slightly different graph. This is where you were. This is where you could be. You would be £53 a month, sorry, better off. And again, we link that to Universal Jobs Match, so we can do that. The second section, do you think you could save money on bills? Well, isn't it interesting to say, I don't know whether we could save money on bills because it's very difficult to do that kind of analysis. But we're linking to a range of sources, which I can go into later if you want me to, the DECC, Money Advice Trust, and a lot of other statistical data, to say actually they could save £317, nearly £318 a month on bills. If they did nothing else, that would mean they'd have £131 left over. Now, if you're a housing association, you're trying to support people and make sure they pay their rent, and you don't want them to run into rent arrears, that's obviously got to be good news. I deliberately put their electricity bill fairly high when I set these numbers up. And I can click on here and say, actually, you're currently spending £85 a month on your electricity. The average for your house, number of people in the house, size of property is £53. You could save £31.58 a month on your electricity. It's something we can have a discussion about. It may be that Auntie Joan is coming in every day for dialysis. That's why the electricity bill's too high. It may be that they're actually leaving the heating on, or it may be that in the spare bedroom they've got a cannabis farm. Who knows? I don't know what they're using with all this electricity, but we can start helping them and supporting this family. I deliberately had the travel bill as fairly high, so we can start looking at ways in which, you know, are they using their car right? Do they really need the car? And other issues like that. Housekeeping and other costs, again, are very high, so we can start looking at these areas. Do you think you could save money on other items? Well, when we start breaking this down, you know, we're saying actually your shortfall is not just the 130 odd pounds per month, but actually per day is £6 a day, which is £2,232 per year. And if you look at things like your cigarettes, which was just £6 a day, that's £2,190 a year. Do you think it's maybe time to start thinking about saving and starting cutting out smoking? It's a conversation you can have. My other conversation is to start saying this is the split of how you're spending your money. Cigarettes, alcohol, coffee, going out, sports clubs. More than 3/4 of the spend is on the couple, less than 1/4 on the children. Maybe we should start helping this family restructure their spending so they can support the family in better way. But of course, when nearly half the spend is on cigarettes, and more than half the spend is on cigarettes and alcohol, maybe that's an area of support we could start talking to them about. And again, we can start creating action plans for when they come back to visit us and start making referrals and triage this family to the right kind of areas. Finally, do you think you could move a house? Some people may not have other properties available. You may not want to have a discussion. But actually, we can start saying, if you did move properties, you could save money on rent and on bills by doing so. And so we can start having that kind of conversation with people. And then we can start creating action plans. Now, for all this work we do, we can print the information out and start presenting it to Peter so he can go home and talk with his family. They can start thinking about what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. I'm not going to get into that today. It's just because obviously time is prescient on us and there's a few things and questions we want to cover. But if there are any questions, Janet, are there any questions at this stage that anybody wants me to cover?
Hi, Peter. Yes, there are actually. There's one question that's come in from an attendee who has asked about the, I'll just read it out. It says, I currently work for a housing association. I have worked for housing benefit that have had an offline benefits calculator in case the internet is down. Will there be an offline version or will it be available on your website exclusively? So that question's
it's available on your website and it's available to work offline. So you can work it offline and all of that. It absolutely works superbly. We've got local authorities who are in wild and distant places where there's lots of sheep and mountains, and they're very easily able to go and visit people in their homes and carry on doing the support that they want to do. So yes, and we can talk you through how that works. And that's available now. That's not a future item. Any other questions, Janet, or shall I move on?
Well, there is another question. Does the calculator show households affected by the LHA cap in the future?
Yes, it does. I haven't got one of those prepared. If there is one, I can certainly happily show you that offline. It does that, and it pulls up a warning advising people. So in the same way that we had warnings about transitional protection and the ability to, should you claim free bills, and advising, for example, I had wanted the calculation to show universal credit, but universal credit in the area that I had wasn't available for a family of this particular ilk. Yes, we have those warnings available now. Of course, the calculation currently is what is your current situation, but we can start doing that analysis. Plus, of course, we use the engine of the calculator already to take housing benefit data and understand exactly what that impact will be in isolation on the LHA cap and cumulatively with other welfare reforms, household by household. So we're providing that information, and we can model in that information to the penny for households right now.
And finally, Peter, there's a question here about pricing. Can you mention about the price?
It's always a great one, isn't it? And when I don't answer the question on pricing, everyone goes, oh, he's got a lot to hide about pricing. I've got nothing to hide on pricing. The pricing models we have vary depending on whether you're a local authority, whether you're a housing association, or whether you're a welfare to work provider. The basic essence of our model is we want to give you site support. So we don't price it per user or per advisor. Unless you're a very small organization, the site support model just doesn't work for you. But what we're saying to a local authority is we want to support all your residents. So everybody that's there, and we want to support it through your third-party organizations. So we have a model that says we don't want you to worry about counting licenses. We have a very competitive pricing model to do that. If you're a housing association, we say, well, it depends how big you are as a housing association, so we do it on a per-house basis. And if you're a welfare to work provider, it depends where you are in the food chain. If you're a leading organization with CPAs, then we have a model for your CPA. If you're a smaller organization, then we'll price it accordingly, maybe by per analyst. I'm very happy, very open and honest about it. If you do have a pricing, I love the question about pricing because it basically means you're very interested in buying. And if you're very interested in buying, I really want to come and have a chat with you to help you do that in the best way and price it so that it's A, competitive, and B, provides the right level of support for you. All our pricing, it's a cloud software, it's per annum, and that means that the pricing also includes for everybody training, online support. So we've got this thing here. At the moment, they're not around because they're all on the webinar, watching the webinar, so they're not answering any questions at the moment. We also provide online support, and of course, it's updates. The welfare system is changing all the time, and we're completely updating. Nearly every weekend, we have updates and pushes, which is updating the software, which is why we keep it as a cloud-based software, so we can do that once and for everybody. Just in the interest of time, we'll move over questions, the rest of the questions, Janet, if that's okay, to a little later on. I just want to just wrap up, because I've got a couple of slides in case I've forgotten to say anything, which, as you probably already can tell, is unlikely. So helping people make decisions that are right for them. The welfare changes in the welfare system is about saying that it is complex, it is different. For some people, do you know, the answer to the question, would I be better off in work, is no. You know, you probably wouldn't. If you're on current benefit system and you're going to take a job at 6 hours at the basic rate of income, you're likely not to be better off in work. You're going to lose in benefits. But actually what people are saying to us is our software is fast, it's easy, it's engaging, it's comprehensive, and it is outcome focused. And a number of statistics have come out from the samples and surveys we've done with our user base to say, you know, for example, customers are 85% more likely to understand how the welfare system will affect them. 85% of advisors think the UBC is faster than their own Better Off calculator. And 75% of customers found the visuals very useful. And people are more likely to go to work, having looked at it. So it allows, we know it's a point solution. We know it's this software is not the only conversation you're going to have with residents who are suffering hardship and difficulties in the complex areas of moving onto universal credit or moving houses and all this kind of stuff. But it is a very useful tool because money does matter for people. And yes, there's the answer to the question. It does work offline, helpful for home visits or in rural areas. Includes a self-service option for tenants. One of the things I didn't mention, which I could have shown you, is you can have it so it integrates at the front end of your website so that actually people can do self-service stuff. And send those calculations into you as the advisors, so you can gather that information offline, again saving you time and money in the delivery of this level of support. And we can do some customization to reflect various other changes, put your logos on there, customize it, and so on. And also we put links in there, so you can say, actually, if you want help on applying for benefits you haven't currently got, we can customize the link so people can go to your website to say, actually, there's a DHP available for you. Here's your DHP form that enables you to do that. In fact, we've customized it for one local authority, so it's acting as a front-end DHP advice tool as well. So all those questions you got on your DHP application form, we're able to show people that kind of information as well. So if you're interested in that, again, let us know with a question and we'll come back to you and go through that in more detail. And as I mentioned, it does include built-in help, training, and live chat support from advisors. And you know, we can sometimes underplay the use of color, visuals, and simple language, but that's very important to people who are sitting in front of advisors who are wanting to provide that level of support. So it helps you have conversations about action plans rather than just data entry. It helps you explain complex changes using visuals and color, not huge tables of data, which I get confused about, and I've done business studies at university and stuff, but I don't like them. Help people make the decisions that are right for them. And of course, people are saying, this is the best reaction I got from a customer is dated, I'm definitely get a job now. People suddenly realizing the fact that they could make a difference, significant difference to their income levels. I think the calculator is brilliant and really easy to use. It can email and print out calculations, and the comparison was fab. The comparison was fab. I read that wrong. That's why I'm not on the BBC. I'll definitely be using this in the future. A very good tool to have. And some quotes from specific people. So a local authority quote, the universal benefit and budgeting calculator is different. It is outcome-based approach, has been very powerful and has really helped us to change behavior of both residents and advisors. Again, as a training tool for advisors, very useful. In a housing association, our tenants are faced with increased pressure on their budget as a result of the welfare reforms. We know that £12 billion is coming out of the welfare budget. But one of the key reasons why we chose the policy and practices benefit and budgeting calculator software, it allows us to provide better income and budgeting support to our tenants. And a welfare to work provider said it's very easy to use and has a lot of really powerful added features. It's also one that is universal credit compatible. And there are a lot of intuitive features, which means that the advisor doesn't have to be a benefits expert, which is very key to a lot of people. And another little one, which is actually saying, we want to partner with you. We want to make sure this works. We want every one of our customers to be a reference site. And at the moment, every one of our customers is a reference site. And that means that we support you throughout the life cycle of what you do. We have regular monthly training courses as you've got new advisors coming in, completely free to our customer base, and so on. So there's a lot of proactive steps now to mitigate the impact of welfare reforms. And I've added this bit to say, Peter, shut up, hand back to Devon. Devon, here you go.
Thanks a lot, Peter. I really enjoyed that demo. I thought it was very clear, and I love the colour you bring to it. I just want to second that last point that Peter made. Is I think it is about we see ourselves as more than just a software company. We think it's hopefully the relationships we have with our clients and customers end up being really strong long-term partnerships that ultimately help the people that are impacted by changes in government policy to make those better decisions. And I think that's an ongoing journey. So I think we're hopefully we can start that together with some more organisations. I wanted to end by talking a bit about a case study that shows how we've worked in partnership with an organisation. In this case, Newcastle City Council and Your Homes Newcastle, which is their arm's length management organisation that manages council stock. So we worked with them effectively as a full service approach. So we used the data that the City Council held on their tenants. Sorry, can you go back the slide, Peter?
Sorry.
Okay. To understand exactly how many of their households were impacted by welfare reform. And then we introduced the software as a way to help those advisors, once they'd identified who was most heavily impacted, have those proactive and those engaging conversations with those customers who had already been affected or were about to be affected by some of these changes. Next one. So we help them to understand the cumulative impact of those welfare reforms on each individual household, and then get that support to them, whether they were a customer that had just moved on to universal credit and needed help with budgeting, or because they're about to be affected by the lower benefit cap, which is one of the cases that Peter showed you a second ago. I think some of the other reasons they felt it was important to work with us is to try and introduce efficiencies for staff. So you might have this in your organisation where you've got different teams using different platforms, and they're all sort of collecting the same information, some on bits of paper, some in Excel spreadsheets. And actually, one of the things our software allows you to do is pull all of that data in together into a single system. It's got delegated access, so a team may only want to have access to a record within its own team, and it allows for efficient and effective reporting and monitoring of that, and fundamentally saves time that advisors could be using to better support their residents, instead of perhaps manual data entry or other inefficiencies that you sometimes see from time to time. And it was also an opportunity to help tenants self-serve. So Peter answered one of the questions about the offline option. We actually won the O2's Local Government Digital Fund Award because of our offline service and offline capability. We've also developed that into something that helps tenants to self-serve themselves. They can save that record, that can be emailed to an advisor, so a calculation when a customer comes in can be part complete or ideally fully complete. So you can just go back to them and ask them for the information. Some of the feedback we got was we identified, I think it was a 7-figure amount of rental income that was at risk as a result of the impacts of welfare reform, and they're able to proactively target those households before they were hit by those changes. And what they found was that because of how engaging the software is, They're able to agree steps in partnership with a customer. They're much more receptive to that support, agreeing those actions that were then recorded that you could then go back to and see whether or not actually they'd taken the steps they needed to improve their situation. And yeah, fundamentally, that was the impact that we had. That proactive support helped them to understand the impact of past and future welfare reforms, cumulatively across the whole city and across their housing stock. They took a preventative and a much more of a proactive approach, and they're finding that that's more cost effective. So they're helping residents today, some of whom perhaps have issues already that they didn't know about, some of whom may currently be having debt issues, that as a result of this, they're starting to target and talk to before they're affected by welfare reforms. And they identified the at-risk figure, so that 7-figure sum of rental income across just 500 households affected by the lower benefit cap. Now that currently affects households in London much more, but as the lower benefit cap comes into effect, it will affect many more. And with universal credit coming in full service in a number of areas, that's starting to become much more of an area of focus. Would you communicate differently? Would you target differently those households that were likely to be better off under universal credit versus those that were likely to need transitional protection or were at risk of being worse off? I think you might want to think about doing that, and you need data to help. So that's some of the impact that we were able to have fundamentally, protect some of that rental income that was at risk and support more of their residents. So any other questions? I think most of them were about the software. I can't see any others pop up, but do take a moment or two and ask if you have any. No? Okay, well, again, we're more than happy to help offline, as Peter said. We can do this for your organisation directly if you'd like. I'll hand over back to Janet just to talk through the next steps. And again, if you do have any questions, feel free to just type them in or raise them.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much to Devon and to Peter. I hope you have enjoyed today's webinar. As promised, we're finishing up way ahead of time, which is great to get you on your way. Just to let you know, everybody who has registered and who's attended for the webinar, I'm going to be sending on these slides and a copy of this recording as well, so you can forward on to your colleagues and indeed look back at the slides yourself. I shall be giving you the opportunity to, in that email, to request case studies. Devon talked a little bit there about the case study that we have with YHM, but also we have other case studies available as well, so I'll list those out, and please do feel free to request them. We have an option to provide a 30-day software trial for you and your colleagues to have a little play about with the software, see if it would work for you and your organisation. So there'll be an opportunity to request that, and also an opportunity to request pricing details specifically for your own organisation. As Peter said, we have different ways of pricing, so there's the opportunity there. Okay, so just in summary, Devon, I don't know if you wanted to just pick up the summary.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we've helped to explain how we help different organisations. Fundamentally, understanding the policy is where we come from. Applying it through technology is how we help organisations to get the facts by understanding it and doing more with what they already know about their residents. And we want that to ultimately help people, so help organisations to do more with less, and support more residents on and into work. So we've been helping local authorities and housing associations to help focus and target support to those residents that are most heavily impacted, get the right support to the right people at the right time. As I hope Peter showed you in his demonstration, help advisors to have better frontline conversations that fundamentally move people toward greater levels of independence. And yeah, that's what we're here to do. Peter mentioned the chat capability. If you did work with us, you've got that access to the expertise we have here in the office at any time. And here are our contact details.
Brilliant. Yeah, so Peter, very, very simple contact details, peter@policyandpractice.co.uk, and Peter's telephone number there, and then Devon at policyandpractice.co.uk. We have contact functionality on the website as well, so no problem for getting in touch with us. So thank you very much, everybody, for your attendance today. As I said, I shall be sending out information after the webinar and we look forward to hopefully working with you in due course and certainly answering any questions that you have as a result of the webinar. Thanks everybody, thank you, take care, have a good rest of the day. Bye bye.